start off with the work you do. So
Okay.
I read that By the People offers uh, webinars on prompt engineering. So I'm curious about that. And since prompt engineering is a relatively new field that's come up in the last year, and I'm sure it's been evolving as well. You've been gaining a new understanding about it. How do you think the expectations of what a prompt engineer has changed between when it was first introduced and now?
hmm Good question. So first of all, let me tell you what we do. I am the founder of By the People Technologies. We are a system integrator for AI systems. We consider ourselves AI strategists. So we help small, medium-sized enterprises find where they should implement AI systems in their products or services to become more competitive. Just as simple as that. In the process of doing that, we obviously have some what I call lower calorie engagements in order to get into the companies and get to know these companies that are interested in implementing AI. One of those is a webinar, and one of those is a workshop. So we do in-house workshops to help people learn how to do prompt engineering and how prompt engineering can help them think at a higher level and get to a higher level of engagement. So prompt engineering, I think, has drastically changed as we as humans have adopted to the generative AI products that have come to us. At the beginning, we were impressed that we would get text, right? And how good the text was that we got out of generative AI. So really, many of the prompts or the prompt engineering nature was around how do I get better text out of my generative AI output? And as new large language models came onto the market, there were suddenly differences. I think one of the first thing everybody noticed when Anthropic's Claude came on the market, they had a larger context window and therefore could prompt much more, I think, text creative prompts, right? You could ask for it
Right.
to write a complete story. You could ask it for many other connections, things that within a smaller context window just got lost, especially with GPT 3.5, right? It just wasn't as effective as Claude was. So I think the prompt engineering certainly was at the beginning focused on how can I get better text out. I took it from a different perspective, and we usually take it from a different perspective in the classes we give, that helping people understand that generative AI, based on the nature is generative, right? We formulates every time you give it even the same query. You know these things, ask for an essay on Abraham Lincoln, ask for an essay on Abraham Lincoln, 5 minutes later, you get a new essay, different length, completely written in a different format. It doesn't even look like it's from the same author, but it's still about Abraham Lincoln. So the aspects of generative is something that many people using computers, and we've grown very accustomed to using computers, right? We're all clear on using desktop applications that have helped us, automate certain tasks. And we expect that when we input a certain thing, we get a certain thing back out. Well, the problem is with generative AI, it just doesn't work that way. Your prompting
Right.
is more on a relative basis, right? You're prompting based on things that you're saying there, and asking the exact same prompt 2 times in a row will get you completely different results. 3 times in a row will give you 3 completely different results because of the
Got it.
generative nature of the system. And then this goes back to obviously people who talk to some of the architects of OpenAI and some of those systems. They really don't know how it works. They built this humongous nodal capacity to receive a bunch of information, and then they gave it the language, right? They gave it the language as can be found all over on the internet and said, now go feast and learn on that language, how it learned things, how it suddenly expresses things in a different way. There's this kids out of Australia that talk about prompt engineering, the way they do it. Right at the end of the prompt, they talk about, we really need this because otherwise my grandmother will die. And they get amazing results out of the generative AI product they're using. And you can go back to the architects and say, why does this work? And they say, we have no idea. No idea. There's no conceivable possibility, because this thing is, say, it's taken on a life of its own, and I put that in big quotation marks because I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but it's taken on its own life of learning through language. And language, when you look at language, is kind of follows the pathway of as we as humans think. We think in language. Right. So if you give it language to train, so it's being taught how to think. And as it is being taught to think, every time you ask it something, despite the fact it might be the exact same words in the prompt, it'll give you different results based on that fact. That's something I find most of my students have a really hard time to grasp, because we expect, obviously, computer programs to just come back with the exact same thing again. So really our hope in engineering a prompt to the point that it gets better, the hope that we're trying to reach is not that it's always going to give the same results, but the hope is that it will actually meet our expectations. 70% of the people I speak to, I tried ChatGPT. It doesn't give me what I want to have. I asked it for a product description, and it sucked with the language that came out. It just doesn't work. What's the hype? And most of the people just don't know that what they didn't get out of it was what they expected. So if we can put into the program, the generative AI product, chatbot that we're using, that whole idea of, this is exactly what I want. Here's some more context. Here's a goal that I'm trying to achieve with this piece. If I can put all that information into a prompt, I'm going to get closer and closer to actually getting my output that I actually want to have.
Got it. So you don't necessarily need it to give you the same answer every time, but to meet the same expectation you have every time.
Put it this way: if you need it to give you the same answer every time, which you need, let's take another extreme from the other side, an accounting application. And that accounting application that says I'm calculating the EBITDA of the company every month needs to be the same answer, right? You need to, every time, if those are the numbers that we did this month, you need to have it be exactly the same thing. Generative AI is completely on the opposite end of the spectrum. As our language is, as humans, we create. So the more through prompt engineering we can teach people to address the generative AI product as another human, the more we're going to get them closer to actually help them use it more effectively in the work that they're trying to create.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. So there are a lot of large language models out there. Do you see that prompt engineering, it differs based on which model that you're talking to? Or can like a one-size-fits-all option learning work here?
It's mildly nuanced in the differences that it has, right? The differences that you see between, like I said, if you're creating more creative short stories, then again, this is a nuanced feeling that Claude from Anthropic is probably going to be better than ChatGPT. If I put the outputs right next to each other, you would say, maybe Claude kind of put some maybe more language expertise in the way it expressed itself, but exactly where that is and can you get it all the time is always a problem. It's not that way. So the horse races, and I love all the different benchmarks that people have come up with, but I got to tell you, those benchmarks just don't do it for the most of the white collar workers that actually need to use generative AI to do their job better. Those benchmarks don't have anything to do with their way of working, right? So I consider prompt engineering one of those kind of skill sets that is going to be one in everybody's job, but rather than having a separate job. I caught a guy, a KPMG engineer, at a presentation, and he said there are 7-figure prompt engineering jobs out there. I said, really? After the call, I said, find me one, just one. Just find me one job. He could not find one. So the statements are being made out here are just ludicrous. But anyway, prompt engineering is going to be a skill just like word processing. Right? You don't have word processors anyway as a job out there. You have people that are supposed to be salesmen, supposed to be accountants, supposed to be marketers, product management people. They all need to learn how to do prompt engineering. So everybody really needs to learn. It's going to be a basic skill of the future. And if you put it
Yep,
in now saying, hey, by the way, I can do this same job, but using the skill set of prompt engineering, I can do it better. I think you're going to float on the top of the resumes looking for a job right now.
got it. Um, so I do think we're running out of time, but I'll end it with one last question. Um, so you mentioned that you worked with small and medium-sized businesses to sort of uh, apply AI in their work. Uh, what do you think are the barriers to entry for these businesses when it comes to adopting AI? What are the major things that come to mind?
I think two things: preconceived ideas about the fact that it's everywhere, so I already know about it, right? So I get this from a lot of people. Gosh, my son uses ChatGPT to do their homework. I helped him with it. I know what it is. I don't need to take a webinar. You don't need to come in and teach my company how to do it. I already know how to do it. It's free. Gosh, everybody can use it. It must be free. So a lot of barriers of entry of really getting into it. And I try to change it, say what you need to do in your company is build a culture of AI. Everybody, even the receptionists and the secretaries, need to be using AI so that you are ready to find out what can we augment and automate using AI within our company, because that's the only way you're going to be competitive. Because one of these days you're going to wake up and your competitor is going to do everything twice the speed at half the cost, and you're going to take 6 months to catch up, the most expensive 6 months of your life. The second thing is this preconceived idea, because we're talking about data. We need to get our data first perfect, and we need to come up with a budget of at least a couple of $1 million to be able to build these systems, and they're not. There's a way of just doing small steps, trial steps, sometimes POC steps, but to get in there and start working, because out of those steps, you'll learn exactly what is the right way. And only one person knows how to implement AI in your company, by the way, and that's you. Right? You know what you do every day of the work, so you're going to know how the AI is going to be best known when you get to learn AI. Some consultant from the outside, I don't care which company they come from or how much they cost, is never going to be able to dictate to you. You need to implement AI to do this process. That's a wrong way to do it. It fails every time. But they know it themselves. They just don't. They think it's too expensive to implement, and it's really not that expensive. Those two concepts, people get past that, I think they're on the road to improvement.
Got it. Yeah. Awesome. I think this was great. It was really helpful. And thank you for taking the
Cool.
time to hop on this call.